Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something really fundamental. Truly at the core of life itself, cell division.
Absolutely. It's this uh, constant, quiet process happening all the time. There's that famous quote from Rudolf Virchow back in the 1850s.
Oh, right. Omnicellula, ecellula.
Exactly. Every cell from a cell. It sounds simple, but it's profound. The continuity of life just depends on it.
And it's not just about making more cells, is it? It's much more complex.
Oh, definitely. It's the engine behind, well, you. Think about going from a single fertilized egg to the trillions of specialized cells you have now. That's all cell division.
Incredible.
And it doesn't stop. Right now, your bone marrow is churning out blood cells, your skin's repairing itself, its growth, development, repair, all driven by this process.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to really unpack the mechanics, how the genetic blueprint, the DNA, gets copied and shared perfectly.
And the control system. It's incredibly sophisticated, this molecular network that directs everything.
Right. And then crucially, what happens when that control fails? Because that has huge implications, like cancer, for instance.
Exactly.
We really want to make these biological ideas clear, help you visualize this intricate dance without needing diagrams right in front of you.
So where do we start? With the blueprint itself, the genome. That's all the DNA in a cell.
And the scale is just wild, isn't it?
It's mind-boggling. Take a human cell. If you stretched out its DNA, it'd be about, what, 2 meters long?
2 meters in a microscopic cell, that's it.
Yeah, something like 250,000 times longer than the cell's diameter. It's an amazing packaging feat.
So how on earth does it fit and stay organized?
Well, that's where chromosomes come in. Think of them as these highly organized packages. They're made of DNA, tightly wound around proteins. We call that whole complex chromatin.
Okay.
And each species has a specific number. For us humans, most of our body cells, the somatic cells, have 46.
But not all cells, right?
Right? Our reproductive cells, the gametes, sperm, and eggs, they have half that number, just 23. That's key for sexual reproduction. But for everyday growth and repair, you need the full 46.
And before the cell divides, it has to copy that entire blueprint perfectly. How?
Yes, DNA replication. This is step one. Each chromosome is duplicated, making two identical copies called sister chromatids.
Like identical twins.
Exactly like identical twins. And they're held together, kind of glued along their length by proteins called cohesins. There's a constricted area, the centromere, where they're held especially tight.
And that duplication has to be absolutely precise.
Utterly critical. Even one tiny mistake, like an extra or missing chromosome, can cause serious problems, developmental issues, or even cancer. The cell's quality control here is intense.
So we have these perfect twin copies. What happens when the cell actually divides?
That's the main event. During division, these sister chromatids are pulled apart dramatically. Each one becomes its own independent chromosome.
So for a moment, the cell actually has double the chromosomes.
Temporarily, yes. It ensures that when the cell splits, each new daughter cell gets one complete, identical set of 46 chromosomes. It's beautiful molecular engineering.
This seems like a good point to clarify something. We hear mitosis and meiosis. What's the quick difference?
Good point. So mitosis is what we're mostly talking about today. It happens in your somatic cells, your body cells. The result, two daughter cells genetically identical to the parent. It's basically cellular cloning.
Okay.
Meiosis is different. It's a special division just for making gametes, sperm, and eggs. It has the chromosome number to 23 and introduces genetic variation. Crucial for reproduction, but not for general growth and repair. So we'll focus on mitosis.
And just think, the roughly 37 trillion somatic cells making up your body right now, they all came from mitosis and the subsequent splitting cytokinesis. And it's still happening, constantly replacing cells, your internal maintenance crew.
Exactly.
All right, so we have the blueprint copied. Let's talk about the actual life cycle of a cell, the cell cycle.
Right, the cell cycle is the whole sequence, from when a cell is born by division until it divides itself. It's got two main phases. There's the long interphase, that's about 90% of the cycle.
And the shorter, more active division phase.
That's the mitotic M phase, which includes mitosis itself, and cytokinesis, the splitting of the cytoplasm.
Now, interphase sounds like a waiting period, but it's not, is it?
Not at all. It's incredibly busy. We break it down further. G1, or first gap, is major growth. Then S phase, for synthesis, that's when the DNA gets duplicated.
The crucial step we just talked about.
Precisely. And finally, G2, second gap, where the cell grows some more and makes the final preparations for division. Lots of metabolic activity the whole time.
Okay, then we launch into the M phase, starting with mitosis proper. You described it as a 5-act play.
Yeah, it helps to break it down. Act 1 is prophase. The DNA, which is usually loose like spaghetti the chromatin, it condenses. It coils up super tightly into those visible chromosomes we recognize.
Things become organized.
Exactly. The nucleoli disappear, and the mitotic spindle, the machinery for pulling chromosomes apart, made of microtubules, starts to form outside the nucleus.
Okay, Act 2.
Prometaphase. This is where the nuclear envelope breaks down. Poof, gone. Now the spindle microtubules can reach the chromosomes.
And grab onto them?
Yes. Special protein structures called kinetochores form on each sister chromatid, right at the centromere. They're like handles. The microtubules attach to these kinetochores, and the chromosomes start getting jerked around, pulled towards alignment.
Sounds chaotic.
It looks it, but it leads to Act 3, metaphase. This is the moment of perfect alignment. All the duplicated chromosomes line up right in the middle of the cell on an imaginary plane called the metaphase plate, like soldiers perfectly ranked.
Everything's symmetrical, ready for the split.
Precisely. Each sister chromatid's kinetochore faces an opposite pole of the spindle, ready for the pull.
Which brings us to anaphase, the dramatic part.
The most dramatic and the shortest, often just a few minutes. Suddenly, the cohesin proteins holding the sisters together are cleaved by an enzyme called separase, SNAP.
And they separate.
Instantly. The sister chromatids become individual chromosomes and are pulled rapidly towards opposite ends of the cell.
How does that pulling actually work?
It's fascinating. Motor proteins on the kinetochores effectively walk the chromosomes along the microtubules, which shorten at the kinetochore end, kind of like Pac-Man munching the track. At the same time, other microtubules push the poles apart, stretching the cell.
Wow. So by the end of anaphase,
You have two complete identical sets of chromosomes, one at each end of the elongated cell.
in the final act of mitosis.
Act 5. Telophase, basically the reverse of prophase. Two new daughter nuclei form at the poles. Nuclear envelopes reassemble around the chromosomes, the nucleoli reappear, and the chromosomes start to decondense, relaxing back into chromatin. Mitosis nuclear division is complete.
But the cell itself still needs to split, right?
Right, that's cytokinesis, division of the cytoplasm. It usually starts during telophase. In animal cells, it happens by cleavage.
Cleavage.
Yeah, a shallow groove called the cleavage furrow forms on the surface. Inside, there's a contractile ring of actin and myosin filaments. It tightens like a drawstring, pinching the cell in two.
Like pulling the strings on a purse.
Exactly. But plant cells, with their rigid walls, do it differently. No furrow.
So what do?
Vesicles, little sacs from the Golgi apparatus, gather in the middle. They fuse together, forming a structure called the cell plate.
Okay.
This cell plate grows outwards until it fuses with the plasma membrane all around. Then, new cell wall material gets deposited inside it, creating a new wall that separates the two daughter cells. Pretty neat solution.
That whole process for eukaryotes sounds incredibly orchestrated. What about simpler life, like bacteria? How do they manage division?
Ah, good question. Prokaryotes like bacteria use a much simpler process called binary fission.
Binary fission.
Yeah, they usually have just one circular chromosome. It replicates, starting at a specific point, the origin of replication.
Okay.
As it replicates, the two origins move to opposite ends of the cell, which is also elongating. Then a protein, sort of like tubulin in eukaryotes, pinches the plasma membrane inwards, dividing the cell into two identical daughters.
Much simpler. No spindle, no complex stages like mitosis.
Exactly. It's more streamlined. And it actually gives us clues about how mitosis might have evolved.
Evolved? How so?
Well, the hypothesis is that mitosis evolved from these simpler prokaryotic mechanisms. There are striking similarities between some bacterial proteins involved in their division and the eukaryotic proteins like actin and tubulin that run mitosis.
Interesting. Are there like intermediate examples?
There might be. Some single-celled eukaryotes like dinoflagellates and diatoms show what could be intermediate stages. Their nuclear envelope doesn't break down during division. Yeah, the chromosomes attach to the inside of the envelope, and microtubules pass through the nucleus to separate them. It's like division happening within the intact nucleus, a possible evolutionary stepping stone.
Fascinating. So we've seen the amazing mechanics, but such complexity must need tight regulation, right? How does the cell control all this?
Absolutely. The control system is key. Timing is everything. Think about your body. Skin cells divide constantly. Liver cells. Only when needed for repair, maybe.
And nerve cells or muscle cells, once mature, basically don't divide at all.
Right. That very issue shows there's sophisticated molecular regulation happening.
Weren't there some early experiments that showed this control was like chemical in the cytoplasm?
Yes. Landmark experiments in the 1970s. Researchers fused cells in different cycle phases. Fuse a G1 cell with an S phase cell. The G1 nucleus starts S phase. Fuse G1 with an M phase cell.
Don't tell me.
The G1 nucleus jumps right into mitosis, chromosomes condense, everything. It proved there were signaling molecules in the cytoplasm actively driving the cycle. Calling the shots, basically.
So that led to the idea of the cell cycle control system, like a control panel.
Exactly. Like the timer on a washing machine. It's a set of molecules that triggers and coordinates everything. And it has crucial checkpoints.
Checkpoints, like quality control stops.
Precisely. Points where the cycle pauses until it gets a go-ahead signal. These are regulated by both internal and external factors. The G1 checkpoint is maybe the most important.
Why that one?
It's often called the restriction point. If a cell gets the go signal here, it usually commits to the whole cycle. Divides. No turning back.
And if it doesn't get the signal?
It exits the cycle and enters a non-dividing state called G0. Most of your specialized cells, nerves, muscles are sitting in G0, just doing their jobs. So that G1 decision is huge.
Are there other critical checkpoints?
Yes. Another vital one is the M checkpoint, latent mitosis. It ensures everything's okay before anaphase starts.
What's it checking?
It checks that all the chromosomes are properly attached to the spindle at the metaphase plate. Anaphase won't happen until they are. This prevents daughter cells from ending up with the wrong number of chromosomes. Critical for preventing errors.
Makes sense. So these are internal checks. What about external signals?
Big ones there too. Growth factors are key. These are proteins released by some cells that tell other cells to divide.
Like for wound healing.
Exactly. Platelet-derived growth factor, PDGF. Platelets release it at a cut, telling fibroblasts to divide and repair the tissue.
And cells also seem to react to crowding, right?
Yes, that's density-dependent inhibition. Normal cells in a dish will grow until they form a single layer, then stop. They sense their neighbors. If you clear a patch, they fill it in, then stop again.
They know when to stop, and they need to stick to something.
Mostly, yes. That anchorage dependence. Most animal cells need to be attached to a surface, like the extracellular matrix in a tissue, to divide. Helps keep things organized.
Okay, so you have this incredibly complex system with internal checks, external signals. What happens when it all goes wrong?
Well, that brings us to cancer. Cancer cells essentially defy these controls. They don't stop dividing when growth factors run out. They ignore density-dependent inhibition, piling up.
They don't need anchorage either.
Often not. They can break loose. And they can keep dividing indefinitely. They become immortal in culture, like the famous HeLa cells. Normal cells usually divide maybe 20, 50 times, then stop.
So one cell loses control, starts dividing like crazy, and forms a mass, a tumor.
Exactly. And we distinguish between benign tumors, they stay localized, usually not too dangerous if removed, and malignant tumors.
Malignant meaning?
Meaning the cells have undergone further changes, allowing them to invade surrounding tissues and spread to other parts of the body. That spread is called metastasis. It happens via blood or lymph vessels, and it's what makes cancer so dangerous.
And understanding this failed control system is key to treating cancer.
Absolutely fundamental. Many standard chemotherapy drugs target rapidly dividing cells, like Taxol freezes the mitotic spindle, stopping cells mid-division.
Hitting them where it hurts.
Yes. And now, with more knowledge, we have personalized medicine. If we know a specific receptor or pathway is faulty in your tumor, we might have a drug to target that specific breakdown in cell cycle control. Much more precise.
So we've covered a lot, from the sheer scale of the genome, the perfection of its duplication.
Through the whole dance of mitosis and cytokinesis.
All orchestrated by this incredibly fine-tuned control system with its checkpoints and signals.
It really highlights the delicate balance, doesn't it? This process, so essential for life, is always kind of poised on a knife edge, a slight misstep in regulation.
And you get problems like cancer.
Exactly, which is why the ongoing research to fully grasp and potentially manipulate these controls is just so vital for medicine and biology.
Well, thank you for walking us through that intricate world. We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer picture, maybe even a sense of wonder at the processes keeping you going right now.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.